All right, so you've finished the other parts that we've mentioned. Now we're on to the bath section. Bath is just a really large sink, and we treat it pretty much the same way. We just did it on a bigger scale. So we'll start with this bath. We have a windowsill, so we're going to start with that. We'll then clean the fittings, tap and this bit here. We go around the outside, and then we'll do the actual bath itself. All right, so with your red microfiber, step into the bath. Do a bit of a spray like so. When you've got a few things like this, basically you move them along. I usually keep them in order because that way it's easier to remember what order they were in, and then clean those bits down. And similar to out there, wipe the bottoms, put them back. The job sheet, you'll always refer to the job sheet. So sometimes the job sheet will say to wipe all these things down. Sometimes it'll just say to wipe the surface itself down. If it's just the surface, just do the bottom like so. All right, and we'll quickly do it this end. All right, okay. Right into that little groove there, which will collect dust. And you can just flick that dust into the bottom of the bath because we're going to clean that in a moment. All right. So this looks pretty discoloured, this surface here. We might just try that with a non-scratch scouring pad too, just to see if we can get any extra bits off, but it looks a little bit basically the water has been left to dry on it, and we'll talk a lot more about this when we talk about the shower, and it's just damaged the surface a little bit. We also do the plug. This is true in kitchens, and if you see a plug, clean it basically. Cleaning a plug is both the top and the bottom. One of the ways you can find out if your cleaner's any good, pick up your kitchen sink plug and have a look underneath it and see if it looks clean. All right, okay. So I'll throw that over there. So turn the water on, just give it a rinse through. So you can see here there's a bit of dust and whatever else that I've knocked down, so you know, dead fly, etc. You can rinse that down the whole start with. And there's something in there, a bit of rubbish, we'll collect that. Go on fly, go down the idea. No. There we go, got him. All right. Right, so do the tap. So similar to the sink tap, you get into all the parts. You want to not just clean the bits that are easy to see, you want to go to the parts that are not so easy to see and reach. And then the rim of the bath, like so. So similar to the mirror, if you try and do this in one continuous motion, you'll find you leave less debris there, which just helps get that finish. And you want to go down the lip of the bath just a few centimetres, as best you can, and then along the tiles. We do the lip first because it's higher, so you do, it's only just higher, but it is a little higher. You also would check the front of the bath and see if there's any obvious marks and give those a clean, maybe on your hands and knees for this one. It's not too bad. I can't see any really obvious marks there. Okay. Then, a bit of Jif. Try not to overdo it. One loop like so. I normally kneel into the bath, sorry. This bath's a bit too tall for me to do that, so I'm going to reach over and hopefully I don't fall in. All right, so you can actually step in And you can do this side because you can rinse it back in, but you can't do the side that's on the floor because you'd end up with water and Jif on the floor. So one of the things you can do here too with baths, when you've done all this, if it still looks a bit discoloured, you can put a bit of bleach in here. Use your non-scratch scouring pad just to apply it. You don't need a lot. This is after you've done all the cleaning and rinsing. And then you just give it a rinse before you leave the property to make sure there's no bleach, because bleach is a toxic chemical. We try not to leave that laying around, especially if there's little kids in the house. All right. I might need a bit more water on that. So bleach would work along here. You can see there's some discoloration. Looks like a bit of mould, maybe in the silicone, although it doesn't look like it. So again, that would be a good bleach spot, just to get it back to a whiter colour. Okay. A bit more water. With the brush, maybe go around their plug hole just to see if there's any bits in there, and which is common in bathrooms, you see a bit of hair. You can throw that on the floor and just vacuum mop that up later. Then we rinse it, similar to the sink. Again, you want to be very, very thorough with the rinsing, making sure there's no residue left, because it does dry as a powder, and often you can think it's been rinsed and there's a fine layer of Jif still there. So rinse it a couple of times at least, and just make sure that you've really got it all off. Now, when you've gone through this process, you might find a couple of parts that you missed. Just give that a bit of a scrub. That looks like it might be similar to the other sink, a little bit of damage, which is very common. The surfaces of these things aren't as tough as some people think they are. They're actually quite soft in certain ways, which is why we use this non-scratch scouring pad and never anything like steel wool. All right, so when you're confident that you've done that, you turn the tap off, make sure that's rinsed down similar to the sink, that there's no debris, which there isn't by the looks of it. I put that in the shower at this point because that's going to be the next thing we clean. Then, with the used microfiber, any excess water on the surface up here, you just dry that off like you did in the other sink. Make sure there's no debris, and that's it. Again, you don't have to worry about the bath being wet. They're designed for water, so you can just let that dry au naturel. So with this bath here, what I've noticed, again, really common, there's a bit of a ring around the bottom of the bath. It's just dirt, basically, that's, you know, discoloured on the tub surface itself. You know, have a bath, couple of kids maybe, water just sits there, all the dirt comes off them, sits at that level, and just can discolour the surface. So what we would do is get the bleach with the non-scratch scouring pad, put a little bit of bleach on that pad and just apply it to the bottom. Obviously being very careful not to splash it around because it is bleach. Will destroy your clothes and other things like that. You leave that sit until we finish cleaning the house. And literally the last thing you do before the mopping is rinse that back out again. Don't leave the bleach there. You leave it there for a little while to do its work, but make sure you rinse it out before you leave so that the tenant doesn't come home and have that nasty bleachy smell in the house. It is a toxic substance after all. All right, so next thing is the shower.